Have you ever wondered how some of the most notorious criminals in history could maintain a cool and composed demeanor during their trials, despite being accused of committing horrific crimes? From serial killers to white supremacists, some criminals have managed to remain chill and collected in the courtroom, even in the face of overwhelming evidence against them. In this video, we'll take a closer look at some of the most infamous criminals who managed to keep their cool during their trials. Timothy McVeigh. He committed one of the bloodiest acts of domestic terrorism in American history and was a former U.S. Army soldier. 168 people, including 19 children, were killed, and hundreds more were wounded when Timothy McVeigh exploded a truck bomb outside the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City on April 19, 1995. In retaliation for how the federal government handled situations like the Waco siege and the Ruby Ridge incident, McVeigh carried out the attack. Soon after the explosion, McVeigh was detained and charged with 11 federal charges, including first-degree murder and conspiracy to use a weapon of mass destruction. In the end, he was found guilty on all charges after his trial, which started in May 1997. Even as the prosecution presented gory evidence and heard testimony from survivors and family members of the victims, McVeigh was regarded as being composed, impassive, and emotionless throughout the trial. According to McVeigh's defense team, he carried out the attack alone and was driven more by his anti-government sentiments than a desire to harm defenseless bystanders. Despite his composure, McVeigh received the death penalty for his actions. On July 11, 2001, in the federal penitentiary complex in Terre Haute, Indiana, he was put to death by lethal injection. The Oklahoma City bombing is still regarded as one of the worst domestic terrorist attacks in U.S. history, and Timothy McVeigh's trial and execution are still seen as an important event in the nation's judicial history. Robert Durst. He is a rich real estate heir who was charged with killing Susan Berman, a writer and journalist who was one of his friends, in 2000. Once evidence tying Durst to the murder emerged in 2015, he was detained and his trial started in March 2020. Durst maintained a composed demeanor throughout his trial, which several spectators found unsettling. Even when the prosecution presented harsh evidence against him, like his testimony from friends and family members, who alleged that Durst had made incriminating admissions regarding Berman's death, he barely displayed any obvious emotion in court. Durst's defense team said that despite his apparent composure, he was afflicted with a variety of medical conditions, including cancer and a neurological illness, which had impaired his memory and capacity for effective communication. However, they questioned the veracity of a few prosecution witnesses and said that Durst was not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, based only on circumstantial evidence. Durst was convicted of first-degree murder in Berman's killing in September 2021. His calm manner during trial was highlighted as a remarkable contrast to the seriousness of his actions, and he was condemned to life in prison without the chance of release. Jodi Arias. In June 2008, she was accused of murdering her ex-boyfriend Travis Alexander in the first degree. Due to the horrific nature of the murder and Arias' cool and collected manner throughout the proceedings, the trial, which started in January 2013, was widely covered and received enormous media attention. During the trial, the prosecution presented evidence showing that Arias had shot and stabbed Alexander 29 times to death at his Mesa, Arizona home during a jealous fury. Despite this incriminating proof, Arias insisted that she was innocent and that she had murdered Alexander in self-defense because of what she claimed to be his history of verbal and physical abuse. Arias maintained her composure throughout the protracted 5-month trial, often taking notes and conversing with her defense team during pauses in the proceedings. Several onlookers questioned if she was capable of such severe conduct due to her calm manner and apparent lack of regret or emotion during the trial. After Arias was convicted of first-degree murder in May 2013, the jury subsequently decided that she should receive the death sentence. Her trial and the events that transpired during it continue to be a topic of intrigue and contention in the legal and media communities. She was finally condemned to life in prison without the chance of release. Andrew Peterson. In a well-reported trial in 2004, he was found guilty of killing his wife, Laci Peterson, who was carrying their newborn son. Having gone missing on Christmas Eve of 2002, Laci's corpse and the body of her unborn child were discovered in the San Francisco Bay 4 months later. Peterson maintained his composure throughout the trial despite the overwhelming evidence against him, which included eyewitness accounts, mobile phone records, and physical proof connecting him to the murder scene. He continued to assert his innocence and denied any involvement in the killing of his wife. Several people saw Peterson's behavior to be emotionally cold and disconnected during the trial, which led some to doubt his guilt and others to blame him for his lack of remorse. Peterson may have seemed composed, but he was eventually found guilty of first-degree murder in the murders of his wife and unborn baby. As a result, he was given the death penalty by lethal injection. Scott Peterson's trial and subsequent conviction remain a highly contentious and carefully followed case, with many discussions and arguments focused on the death sentence, the criminal justice system, and the psychology of offenders who maintain a cool-headed manner throughout their trials. Anders Behring Breivik. In 2011, Anders carried out a horrifying assault in Norway that resulted in the death of 77 people, including a bombing in Oslo and a shooting spree on the island of Utøya. Due to the severity of the assaults and Breivik's radical beliefs, his trial, which started in 2012, received extensive media coverage. Notwithstanding the tragic evidence from survivors and relatives of those slain in the assaults, Breivik maintained a cool and emotionless manner throughout the trial. He would often observe silently, taking notes and even nodding in agreement or dissent. Many found Breivik's placid manner throughout the trial to be disturbing, and several questioned if he was actually without remorse or merely unaware of the severity of his actions. Breivik said in his defense that the assaults were required to expose his extreme political beliefs and to combat what he saw to be the danger of multiculturalism and Islamist influence in Norway. Despite having a calm exterior, Breivik was convicted guilty of mass murder and terrorism and received the maximum term permitted by Norwegian law, 21 years in jail. Discussions on extremism, terrorism, and the psychology of violent criminals continue to be sparked by his trial and the circumstances surrounding it. Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy, who was found guilty of killing at least 30 young women in the 1970s, was one of the most infamous serial murderers in American history. At his trial in 1979, Bundy often charmed and misled everyone around him, including the jurors. Bundy maintained a calm and assured manner throughout his trial, usually serving as his attorney and constantly objecting to the proceedings. He was well recognized for his charisma and charm, which he utilized to sway others around him. He often gave the impression that he was in charge of the courtroom. Bundy insisted on his innocence despite the overwhelming evidence against him, which included confession, physical proof, and eyewitness testimony. He even made an effort to question the validity of the trial itself. He claimed that he hadn't gotten a fair trial and even made an effort to flee while it was going on. Several people point to Bundy's cool-headed manner throughout his trial as proof of his sociopathic characteristics and capacity for social manipulation. He made an attempt, but in the end, he was found guilty, given the death penalty, and killed in 1989. The trial of Ted Bundy continues to serve as a terrifying reminder of the depths of human depravity, and psychologists and criminologists are still debating and studying his cool-headed conduct throughout the proceedings. Dylann Roof. The 2015 murder of 9 black churchgoers by Dylann Roof in Charleston, South Carolina, was a stunning and heinous act of racism. His 2016 trial received extensive media coverage and sparked a conversation about the racial inequality and hate crimes in America. Roof maintained a composed and emotionless demeanor throughout his trial, often sitting stoically while prosecutors presented the evidence and survivors discussed how the massacre affected their lives. Several others thought his manner in court was unsettling, and some people theorized that he could have been drugged or under the influence of narcotics. For the relatives of the victims and the larger community, Roof's apparent lack of regret and seeming detachment from the seriousness of his actions was a cause of intense grief and rage. Although showing no signs of emotion throughout the trial, a guilty decision was reached, and he was given the death penalty in 2017. The trial of Roof and the circumstances surrounding it have sparked ongoing discussion and debate about racial problems, hate crimes, and the psychology of mass killers. His dispassionate, emotionless conduct throughout the trial serves as a chilling reminder of the depths of human depravity and the need of being vigilant against extreme beliefs. It's both fascinating and unsettling to see how some of the most notorious criminals in history have been able to maintain a cool and collected demeanor during these trials, despite being accused of heinous crimes. We hope this video has given you some insight into the psychology and behavior of these criminals, as well as the impact that their actions have had on their victims and the wider community. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share it with your friends and family. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more content on true crime and other fascinating topics. As always, we appreciate your feedback and comments, so please let us know what you think in the comments section below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.